Howdy, guys, and welcome to Cliff Notes, and welcome to a recap of the Challenge Double Agents, episode 18, and the beginning of the finals. Oh, we're finally here, guys. I'm so excited. And let's talk about last week first before we get into an incredibly exciting episode this week. But last week, we saw Kyle going home after getting beat by Fessy in a hall brawl, breaking his finger as he walked out the door. So we're down to our final 8 agents, our final 4 teams. We've got one Big Brother super team of Fessy and KC. We also have CT and Amber, and then we've got Leroy and Nani and Cam and Corey. Can I just say how much I really like all 4 of these teams? Yeah, there's been some seasons at the end. There's a few people I'm cheering for, a few people I'm cheering against. I like all of these guys. They've all played great this season. They all deserve to be here. So congratulations, mad respect to all of them. But we're down to the final 8. Someone's getting ready to take home one heck of a paycheck, and we're getting ready to find out who. All right, so we're at the finals. Let the celebrating ensue, and it certainly does. We see all these house guests. I'm thinking Big Brother. We see all these agents get back to their house. They get indoors. They're excited. They know they're just that close to the final decision. So they're celebrating. They're very happy people. And we see some voiceovers from some different people. Now, one that I liked, it was very interesting. CT is talking to Amber. He's got a good point. He says, look, you're an athlete, Amber. You can run. You can do the physical stuff. Don't worry about the puzzles. Don't worry about the eating. I can do that stuff. We're a perfect team together. We cover each other's weaknesses. In fact, CT even mentions, you're probably going to outrun me. You're going to have to be urging me along. So I like that. I love seeing him kind of building her up, because if y'all remember last week, Amber was so down in the dumps. She did horrible on the math puzzle. Fessy dumps her. She just feels like she doesn't even belong in the finals in some ways. CT's pumping her back up. CT did that with Big T. Now he's doing it with Amber as well. And he's got a very good point. They very well may complement each other well. We'll see how it works out in the final itself. We also have another voiceover. I'd kind of forgotten about this. And Corey's talking about the fact that he still hadn't forgotten that Fessy kind of betrayed Nelson earlier in the season. Nelson and Corey, very tight. That Fessy threw Nelson under the bus, beat him at hall brawl, sent him home. Corey still hadn't forgotten about that. He does not want Fessy to win this thing, does not want Fessy to advance any further than possible. Now, obviously, Cam and Corey are aligned with Leroy and Nani, given that Cam and Leroy are romantic partners. So those two are really linked together. They have been through the whole season and continue to be so. But you look at the other 2 teams, Fessy and KC, and then CT and Amber. They're both really kind of lone wolf teams. I think any of the other 3 teams really would not want either one of those teams to advance. People are afraid of those teams. Just soon see them head out the door as quickly as possible. There's no alliances left. At this point, there's 4 teams competing with each other. There's no point. Well, maybe between Leroy and Cam a little bit, but for the most part, every one of these teams is fighting for their own. Now, if I look at these teams going in, it's such an interesting mix. You've got some of the teams that have so much experience. CT, I'm talking to you, my friend. They have so much experience playing this game. CT mentions, I think he's won 3 finals. Then you have people that really haven't won the finals. We saw KC last year get to the finals, but haven't won. But KC and Fessy are so athletic. You got to think they're favored in a big endurance type competition that some of these finals entail. But will math and puzzles be their downfall, as athletic as they are? Neither one of them this season has proven that they can solve a math puzzle worth a darn. So, we'll see. We'll see how they do in this final competition. It's going to be great. So we hear the sirens go off. We see the sirens go off. They hop into their stretch Hummer vehicle, limos. They get out in the middle of nowhere, which has been the theme all season long as they're competing up in Iceland. TJ's waiting for them, and he's got some information. He mentions that this one is called, of course, it's called The Final Mission, and that they are playing for $1 million. That may have been mentioned earlier in the season, but I wasn't really sure if it was $1 million for the winner, $1 million for a team, exactly how this was going to work. Will we get the breakdown this evening? We find out that, first of all, there's 4 teams competing today. One of these four teams isn't going to advance to the second day of the finals. This is it for one team. Whoever comes in last place, they're out the door. They're heading home. Of the three teams that are left, third place team's getting zero. Respect for making to the finals, I suppose, but they aren't walking home with flying home with any money. Second place, $100,000 to be split between the two teammates. Not too shabby, but not what anyone's shooting for, which leaves for the grand prize team $900,000. So now they're not winning $1 million, but I think they'd be happy with $900,000 split between the two teams. So the winning man, winning woman is going to take home $450,000 each. That's not too shabby, now is it? So we now know how it's going to work. And apparently they are competing as duos, which they had suspected all season long. I always wondered if maybe they'd break it up into individuals, but it doesn't appear that's the case. They will be racing as duos. So there you have it. There's the breakdown. Now let's get into the actual competition, and this is where it gets fun. So the first stage of this race, all the teams take off at once. They have to run 3 miles, and very much a cross country. They aren't running down old asphalt road. No, they're running up little hills. They're running across gravel piles and rocky terrain, kind of dangerous looking terrain. And the wind is blowing. It does not look fun at all. And it's 3 miles. 3 miles of the best of conditions, a little tough. Well, maybe not for them, but for old Boss Hog it would be. But they got to run 3 miles in some pretty rough terrain. They take off. And sure enough, I suppose sure enough, the guys tend to take the lead. We've got Fessy and Leroy at the first. Others are following up behind. Nani's in the rear. She's going slower than everyone else. Leroy eventually starts kind of hanging back to support her. But they're not too far apart. By the time they finally finish this 3 mile race, there isn't but a couple of minutes separating. I can't remember who comes in first. I think Fessy comes in first. He hollers at Casey a few times, feels like she's not running quite as much as he expects or as fast, but Fessy finishes first. Nani finishes last. Again, there's only a few minutes separating, so we don't see a huge distance between these teams at this point. Now, once they finish this part of the race, we find out later that they're going to do a checkpoint of a competition. Once they finish that, then the next stage of the race will be some more running. And the order in which they take off is based on the average time of each team as they finished up that first 3 miles. So there'll be a little bit of a gap between who takes off first, who takes off at the end. But again, it's not so much. But now that they finished up their first 3 mile run, now that they've got their heart rate going up, their cardio engaged, now it's time for the first checkpoint competition. And we've seen it before. This competition is sorry, I just lost my train of thought. It's a repeat of the very first challenge of the season. They're going to run up a gravel hill. They're going to fight for a little metal capsule about like this. It's got all kinds of color-coded rings all the way up and down it. They have to memorize the order of those color combinations, run back to a kiosk at the base of the hill, enter a bunch of wires that correspond to the same colors, the same order that they saw in this capsule itself. As soon as they do that, they ask TJ for a check. He comes over and tells them whether they've got it right or not. It is going to be broken down into 2 separate heats, men in the first heat, women in the second heat. And he says, the winning team, you want to win this because it is a huge advantage. But he doesn't tell us until after the race. So at this point, we don't know what it is. They blow the whistle. The men take off. They're all up the hill. They fight over it for a little while. Eventually, Leroy and Corey go back to their kiosk. I think Fessy does at one point as well. But no one can memorize all the colors all at once. So Fessy runs back, grabs the capsule. CT's right behind him. He's trying to get to the capsule. Fessy's trying to keep the capsule away from him, holding it out. We see Fessy and CT go at it. They're grabbing each other. They're fighting over this capsule. I love watching those two guys go at it. So they're fighting a little bit. Eventually, I think Corey or Leroy, I think both of them have to come over and check their numbers or their colors again as well. But they're all fighting for it. But in the end, the first person to solve the puzzle, to get it right, is the old guard of CT. Yeah, CT. People are afraid of him. There's a reason for it. CT always turns it on at the end. And once again, he does it here. CT takes the men's heat and has won that half of the competition. And now it's time for the women. And just like CT and Fessy went at it, we see something similar between Casey and Amber. Casey's such an athlete, but you don't really see her getting testy with other people and really fighting. I mean, she seems like such a friendly person, but she and Amber, they're not messing around. They're fighting over that capsule quite a bit. They're working. They're doing. In fact, Casey actually runs back, gets all her colors plugged in first, and says, "Check." TJ comes over. I kind of was thinking that's it. Casey's gonna win her side. She got something wrong. Not sure what it was, but she got something wrong, and that's all a chance that Amber needs. Amber finishes up. Amber has won as well. Amber and CT, they're teammates, and they've both won their round. So obviously that's the team that has won this competition. But we don't know what the winner gets. We don't know how it works. And it turns out that according to TJ, the winner is not just the top team, but the top agent who solved it in the best time, which happens to be Amber. Congratulations. Amber was so upset about how she did last week. Now she's turned around and she's won the first competition. And we find out that the advantage she has is one heck of a advantage. She gets to pick who she wants as her teammate for the rest of the race, for the rest of the finals. She can stick with CT. I didn't really go in thinking when I heard this, I didn't think that she would try to break up Leroy and Nani, or that she would try to break up Cam and Corey. But there was a possibility that she could go in and grab Fessy back. Remember, Fessy dropped her last week. It would be ironic karma for her to turn around and grab Fessy right back. And she looks at him, and maybe she considers it, but she does a cool thing. She talks to CT and says, "Are we cool? Are you okay with me?" And CT says, "Yeah, absolutely." And so she says, "Nah, I'm sticking with CT." I like that choice. I truly do. You don't want to go back with Fessy. She's kind of chapped that he dumped her already. And yeah, he's a strong athlete and all of that, but you don't go back to someone after they've rejected you, booted you out the door. Stick with your new partner. So I was kind of happy to see Amber do that. And again, I'm curious to see how it's going to all pan out. So we do have that. So now that we finished the first physical competition, the first checkpoint competition, it's time to start the other race. Now they've already run 3 miles, so just a little warm up, right? Well, they've got a little more running to do. This time they have to run another 2 miles. At the end of the run, they have to grab a key hanging from a board, and then I couldn't really tell if they're having to run all the way back to the starting point again. Is that 2 miles each way, or is it 1 mile down, 1 mile back? I don't know. All I know is it's a long way to run. But they take off running again, and it's about the same order. There may be a little change. Again, they started based on how they finished the last heat, but they all get to the keys within a few minutes of each other, it seems. Now this terrain, this is difficult terrain. They're running along a coastline. It's a very small hill. Hey, you seen Lord of the Rings where they're walking up to the pass of Mordor and all that? It's what it looks like in this path as well. There's not a whole lot of walking room, and we see some people take a tumble, but we see one person in particular take a tumble, which is a little bit worse than the rest of them, and that's KC. They've already grabbed their keys. They're coming back to the next part of the challenge where they utilize these keys for we don't know what, but they've got to use it. And all of a sudden, Casey slips. It looks like she slips, falls on her backside based on a little video we saw of it. But she immediately starts yelling and screaming, says she popped her knee. Well, Casey's an athlete. She's I'm sure been through some injuries before. She plays professional football. So when she knows she's hurt, then we gotta take her word that she's hurt. And in fact, I kind of suspected something like this because last winter, Casey, I did see on Instagram and stuff, Casey got surgery on her leg, and she was very, very mysterious about what caused it. And she said, we'll talk about it later. I can't really talk about it now, which at the time made me think, maybe something happened on the challenge. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just go ahead and talk about it? So sure enough, it's an injury. And based on the fact that I know she had surgery after the season, it's got to be a pretty severe one. And she's in pain. She's upset. Fessy's next to her, and he's upset for a lot of reasons. I think Nani says, he's just thinking about himself. I don't think that's the case. I think Fessy is disappointed that his game may be over if she's out of the competition, but I also think he's worried about his partner, and you feel for people. So, but she's upset. She's disappointed. The medics show up. I guess they get her knee popped back into place because they eventually wrap it up. She pops up, barely walk on it, but she's not going to give up. She and Fessy start not really running, a little more walking, but they are certainly heading back to the boxes as well. So she's giving it everything she's got. I can't fault Casey 1 point. She's got a heart of a lion as she fights through this stuff. So she eventually does make it back, but they're way behind the other three teams. And the other three teams took their keys and they've discovered something. I don't think it excites anyone. The keys open up a giant box for each one where they discover 2 plates filled with amazing, incredible delicacies that no one in their right mind would ever want to eat. If I recall, we had a sheep heart, we had fish eyes, we had ram's testicles, we had a liter of blood, and we had a sheep's face, a face. Now, the other stuff sounds disgusting, right? But I kind of see someone, maybe if they're really hungry, eating the eyes, heart, maybe the give you courage and all that. Hey, Cowardly Lion may have eaten the heart during Wizard of Oz, done great, but yeah, I can see him doing that. I can even see him eating the testicles. Yeah, hey, I'm gonna be the most fertile man in the world if I eat these sheep testicles or ram testicles. So I kind of see all the other things being eaten if you're really desperate or you're just a daring kind of guy. But to eat a sheep's face, that's got to be right down there at the very bottom of things I would choose to select from any animal to eat. And in addition to all of that, they've got a big old glass, and big, it's a liter of blood to drink. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, it's just a liter of blood. In other words, they don't say, is this cow blood? Is it kangaroo? I don't know. What animals are native to Iceland? None of them, maybe. Is it seal blood? Is it human blood? I'd be asking a little more questions before I just start chowing down on blood without figuring out, what it is. But no one seems to ask. So they have to eat. They have to eat the most disgusting food. And it gets even worse because there's 2 plates. There's 2 liters of blood, 1 liter for each contestant. We saw earlier CT said, Amber, man, all you got to do is run and be physical. I'll do the eating stuff. Nah, I don't think that's the case. We never hear it specifically stated, but I think each person has to eat from their own plate. You can't help each other out. So everyone has to do their part in this particular competition. And it is horrible. Everyone in this competition is having issues, except for CT, who seems like he's excelling. Now, I see CT throw up once or twice, so it's not as though it's quite as easy as he implies, but he's not throwing up near as much as the other people on this competition. There's a whole, as Corey mentions, there's a whole montage of people heaving up everything they've eaten. And, when you have all this disgusting food and you mix in a lot of blood, the result as it comes back up, it looks like something out of the Twilight series or something. Yeah, some incredible disgusting stuff. But CT is excelling where everyone else is not, except for Fessy. Fessy's not having any problem with this. He's not throwing up because he isn't eating at all. Now, Fessy looked at everything, and you could tell when Fessy looked at those fish eyes and everything else on that plate, that is when he checked out. He immediately says, it doesn't really matter. You can barely walk, Casey. We aren't going to be able to compete any further. So why should we subject ourselves to this? We're done. And here's the thing. I'm not sure, even if Casey had not fallen, that Fessy would be eating this food. Or at least if he did, he would be eating it very slow. We saw earlier this season that Fessy is not an eater. He's not one of these that's willing to eat anything disgusting. Heck, and I'm not going to say back on Big Brother. He had reasons that he wouldn't eat the ham, and very justifiable reasons. But this season, he's proven that eating is his Achilles heel. And I'll say this. As much as I like Fessy, I've met him. I think he's a great guy. I'm always going to cheer for Fessy as much as I like him. But the challenge needs to make sure that there is an eating challenge on every final from this point forward that Fessy is a part of until Fessy proves himself. Everyone's got their weakness. Big T jumped out of an airplane. She overcame her fear of heights to do what she needed to do. Fessy, it's your turn. If not this season, next season, you need to prove yourself when it comes to an eating challenge. But Fessy is not having any part of this at this point in time until we eventually get a winner. And the winner is Amber and CT. Hey, what a day for those two. They won their individual heats. They've now won the eating challenge as well. Amber's a champion. I mean, CT, I said he wasn't having issues. Amber's eating away as well. And it is this blood running down her chin. Yeah, it looks, it's the most disgusting thing you've ever seen. I'm a fan of zombie movies. But, yeah, you know what? These people look like zombies after a feast with the way they're eating this stuff. So Amber and CT have won yet another competition today. And now we find out what the reward is for this challenge. Remember, the first time she got to decide whether she wanted a new teammate or not. This time, they get to punish one of the other teams because in addition to all the food that everyone's already having to eat, TJ announces that, oh, here's a special plate with a couple of sheep kidneys on it. And whichever team you give this to has to also eat the sheep kidneys before they can finish up the race itself. So there you have it. Now, at this point, we see all three teams basically, Fessy and KC are already saying, yeah, don't give it to us. We're already running on one leg. And obviously, Leroy, Nani, and Cam and Corey, they're all saying, don't give it to us. Yeah, they got to give it to someone. And if I was in their position, I wouldn't give it to Fessy and Casey because I do think that they're way behind already. There's no way they can recover. So you got to give it to one of the other teams, I suppose. But here's the thing. There's also a strategy that says, TJ said the very first 3 teams advance, 1 team goes home. If all you're worried about is finishing in the top 3, maybe you do give that sheep's kidney to Fessy and KC, and you just absolutely slam the door at that point that they cannot finish except in last place by the time you do that. So maybe that's a strategy, but we also don't know if how people finish at the end of this race may affect how they start the race on day 2. So a lot to think about. And unfortunately, we don't know what's going to happen yet because that's where the episode ends. Now, I will say this. We see in some of the follow-up for next week, I see a very quick shot of Fessy eating and throwing up a little blood himself, which tells me they probably do not get the punishment from Amber and CT. And because someone else does, now they suspect maybe they've got a chance to advance anyway. So it's not completely over for the super big brother team of KC and Fessy at all. And I got to say, KC, she's a little chapped, even though she's on a bad knee and she's saying, I'll do whatever it takes, but I'm eating this food. We're not quitting. And she's really giving Fessy a hard time saying, finish it. Just eat it. Just eat it. If we don't make it, great, but you got to give it an effort all the way through. And she's right. You got to eat it, Fessy, just to look good, even if you still finish in last place, even if everyone else has already finished a competition and they're sitting there back at the house drinking margaritas. Eat your share of it and prove that that's not your Achilles heel. And it's what you got to do, man. Incredible episode. I really enjoyed it. Running, not so much. Some of those other challenges I would have had a blast doing. I don't know. It would have been interesting, but a lot of fun. And again, we don't know who the 3 teams are that are going to advance. We'll find that out next Wednesday as we get to part 2 of the finals. I can't wait. Guys, y'all have a fantastic week. I'll do a recap of episode 19 once we get it dropped next Wednesday. Until then, y'all have a great one. Cheers, my friends. And hey, go check out some sheep testicles or hearts or fish. I don't know. Replicate the way you do the challenge if you're on the show. Don't go running. Everyone can run. Go eat the disgusting stuff and see if you got what it takes to be on the challenge. Have a great one, guys. Talk to y'all later. Cheers, my friends. Bye.